For most of human history, we were not alone. If you could travel back 50,000 years, you'd find a planet where several different kinds of humans existed at the same time. Some looked a lot like us. Others were built completely differently. Shorter, heavier, shaped by climates and landscapes that would break a modern person. One species lived on a remote island and evolved to be barely 3 feet tall. Another is so mysterious that nearly everything we know about them comes from a single finger bone. And then there was us, Homo sapiens. Today, we are the only human species left, not because we were the strongest or the smartest or the ones who'd been here the longest, just the ones who are still here. Which raises a question that doesn't have a clean answer. What happened to everyone else?
What actually happened was slower and messier. To understand how that played out, you have to start with the species that lasted the longest, Homo erectus.
Homo erectus appeared around 2 million years ago. To put that into perspective, everything modern humans have ever accomplished, every city we've built, every war we've fought, every language we've spoken, fits inside the last few thousand years. Homo erectus existed for such an enormous stretch of time that our entire recorded history looks like a footnote beside theirs. Their bodies were the first to look recognizably human. They had long legs, shorter arms, and a frame built for walking and running across open landscapes. They were almost certainly the first human species to leave Africa and spread into other parts of the world, adapting to environments they had never evolved for. Their brains were smaller than ours, but much larger than those of earlier human ancestors. They created stone tools that barely changed for hundreds of thousands of years. That may sound like a lack of innovation, but it actually shows how effective those tools were. There simply wasn't much pressure to improve them.
Eventually, however, their world changed. Their final populations became isolated on the island of Java in Indonesia. Forests shrank, food became scarcer, and with fewer people and less space, they slowly ran out of options. After surviving for nearly 2 million years, Homo erectus disappeared around 110,000 years ago.
Next came the Neanderthals, probably the most misunderstood humans in history. For decades, they were portrayed as dim-witted cavemen, but that picture couldn't have been more wrong. Neanderthals were incredibly well adapted for survival. They had compact, powerful bodies with broad chests, thick bones, and strong muscles. Their large noses helped warm freezing air before it reached their lungs. On average, their brains were even slightly larger than ours. They hunted dangerous animals at close range, controlled fire, crafted sophisticated tools, and there's growing evidence they buried their dead with care. Neanderthals lived across Europe and Western Asia for more than 300,000 years. Then, around 45,000 years ago, Homo sapiens entered the same regions. For thousands of years, both species lived side by side. DNA evidence shows they even had children together, but they also competed for the same animals and the same land. Homo sapiens generally lived in larger social groups, connected through wider networks. Ideas, resources, and support could travel across long distances. Neanderthals, by contrast, tended to live in smaller and more isolated communities, making recovery from difficult times much harder. Meanwhile, the climate kept changing. Ice ages advanced and retreated, constantly reshaping the environment. Neanderthal populations became smaller, more isolated, and genetically less diverse. By around 40,000 years ago, they vanished. There wasn't one dramatic event. Instead, climate change, competition, and declining populations gradually pushed them toward extinction. Then there were the Denisovans.
They're unlike any other human species because we know them mostly through genetics rather than fossils. Their discovery began with a single finger bone found inside a cave in Siberia's Altai Mountains. When scientists analyzed its DNA, it matched no known human species. Not Neanderthals, not Homo sapiens, something completely different. Since then, only a handful of remains have been discovered, including a few teeth and part of a jawbone from the Tibetan Plateau. Yet, despite leaving almost no fossils, their genetic legacy is enormous. People across parts of Asia and Oceania still carry Denisovan DNA. Some Melanesian populations have as much as 6% Denisovan ancestry. Tibetans even inherited a Denisovan gene called EPAS1, allowing them to thrive at extreme altitudes where most humans struggle to survive. A species we can barely find in the fossil record still shapes how millions of people live today. As a living population, however, the Denisovans disappeared around 30,000 years ago. Then there's one of the strangest chapters in our family tree. In 2003, scientists discovered the remains of an incredibly small human species on the Indonesian island of Flores. They stood only about 1 meter tall and had brains roughly the size of a grapefruit. At first, many researchers thought the bones belonged to modern humans with a medical condition. But as more evidence emerged, it became clear they belonged to an entirely separate species, Homo floresiensis. These tiny humans shared their island with Komodo dragons, giant storks, and dwarf elephants. Islands often produce unusual evolution. Large animals become smaller. Small animals sometimes become larger. Homo floresiensis may be one of the most extraordinary examples of island evolution in human history. Their fossils date from roughly 100,000 to 60,000 years ago, and evidence suggests they may have survived until around 50,000 years ago. Modern humans arrived in the region at about the same time. We don't know exactly what happened, but on a small island, even slight environmental changes or new competition can push a tiny population beyond the point of recovery. So why are we the only human species left? The obvious answer is intelligence. But that explanation quickly falls apart. Neanderthals were intelligent. Denisovans adapted to extreme environments. Homo erectus survived for nearly 2 million years. Homo floresiensis endured conditions that would challenge modern humans. Perhaps what truly separated Homo sapiens wasn't raw intelligence, but our ability to build vast social networks. Knowledge, tools, and ideas spread between communities faster and farther than ever before. When one group disappeared, its knowledge often survived somewhere else. When climates shifted, our ancestors adapted by sharing solutions instead of starting over.
Even then, that explains only part of the story. Luck mattered, geography mattered, population size mattered. We weren't destined to become the last human species. We simply happened to survive. The other human species weren't primitive versions of us. They weren't failed experiments.
They were fully human in their own ways, each following a different path through history. Homo erectus survived for nearly 2 million years. Neanderthals endured hundreds of thousands of years of Ice Age climates. The Denisovans left almost no fossils, yet their DNA still lives on inside us today. For most of human history, we were just one branch of a much larger human family. Now, we're the only one left. If you enjoyed this journey into our forgotten past, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more incredible stories from the lost timeline. Until next time, keep exploring history.